This footage is Isabel Oakeshott absolutely sticking it to this Tory politician, Andrew Griffith. It's brilliant to watch, and she speaks for the majority of the British people. She calls them out on their lies after it has come to light that net migration is over 700,000. She asked him why his government promised to lower immigration if we voted for them, and then facilitated the highest level of mass immigration in our history. Of course, there was no response. He just sat there silent, wanting the ground to swallow him up. She was looking directly at him as she said all this. As we know, the Conservatives are perfidious liars who have absolute contempt for their citizens. They are for themselves and rich businesses and nothing else. They don't care about the people. And we know mass immigration under their rule is partly a result of their anti-British model of corporate capitalism. They wanted cheap labour for their business friends who care about nothing and no one other than their profits. So the Conservatives opened the borders to all and sundry. Brits are not prepared to work for peanuts, and why should they work for a wage they can't live on? But the government knows migrant workers will work for peanuts, so they imported them in unprecedented numbers. They'll never admit that, though. What was also interesting was the face of this Labour politician when Oakeshott spoke. After her speech, Oakeshott repeatedly, directly asks her if her Labour government would be committed to lowering immigration. She refused to say that it would be. She gave the vague answer, "I think the numbers will go down." I think this expression tells us all we need to know about them, which is the numbers will go up. Well done to Isabel Oakeshott for speaking up. The more that speak up, the better. Take a watch.
I think these figures are an absolute catastrophe for the government. I think they're a catastrophe for this country. We are basically importing 750,000 people a year at a time when we have got all these people on out of work benefits, many of whom would like to be able to take jobs. We do not need to be importing this many people. And if you are going to import 750,000 people a year, you have got to build the infrastructure to go with it. You can't have mass immigration and not actually have the schools, the hospitals, the GP surgeries, the homes and the roads to support those people. So the impact of that is that the standard of living for everybody goes down. We've all seen the impact on public services. And this is a government that has time and again told us that it is going to bring down net migration, and has time and again done the absolute precise opposite. They have presided over mass migration. You have basically presided over open borders. You are letting people still coming in, despite your stop the boats mantra. Every single week, more people come in.
What would you like to see migration?
I would like to see net zero migration.
Zero migration?
Net zero, because I don't think we need any more people.
So when you have situations like when you have the National Farmers, when you have the National Farmers Union, for example, saying we need people to come in and pick the crops because there aren't enough people who live in this country who want to do it.
Well, they may not want to do it, but there are plenty of people who are capable of doing it.
But when there was a scheme to try and get people to do it, hardly any British people.
Well, that comes back to our question before about whether we're incentivising people to take jobs. And as for,
so you think we're making it too easy for them not to do it? Is that your point?
Of course, we need to have the brightest and best people here. I'm all in favour of that. You know, the NHS heavily relies on immigration, on brilliant doctors and nurses and other healthcare professionals. We need those at the moment. Why? Because we're not actually paying our own healthcare professionals well enough or looking after them well enough to stick with the NHS themselves.